mentioned, on every invocation of the decision service, when I hit next, we will be evaluating the rules that have been, or the data that has been accrued thus far, in addition to any of the other meta placeholder information like current stage number, path to data, etc. So you'll see that I skipped ahead at the click of a button from stage 3 all the way to 6. It did that because I had defined what to do at stage 3. If I go back briefly, we can see how I had defined after this stage that the next stage number will be 5. What happens at stage 5 was or the reason I'm being assigned the next stage number being 5 is because I have defined as the end user earlier on that I don't want to add any of those optional coverages. Based upon the condition of whether or not the value of add jewelry, add flood, or add electronics was true, in that case I would have been routed to a different stage, at which point I would have been asked as the end user to enter a level of coverage for each of those. By virtue of having not selected to add any of those optional coverages, I skipped ahead to stage number 5, which was the second to last step before I just get presented with this final pricing quote. Now we're going to get into briefly in just a moment how we not just skipped from 3 to 5, but also 5 to 6, meaning something happened at stage 5 without us knowing. But the thing that I want to point out as we take a pause here to take a look at these stages is we're not limited in this dynamic form framework to be at all constrained by linearity or counting in the right order of stages. Obviously, I've hit previous a few times, which explains why I have 0, then 1, then 0 again. But there are other times, such as 3 to 5, where I have skipped ahead, but I have likewise skipped a step entirely. So where is step 4? Well, that's the stage at which I would have been routed should I have needed to provide a level of coverage for those optional coverages. So these stage numbers are not to be viewed as a linear sequence which is rigidly defined and will always be followed, versus individual placeholder IDs essentially for individual steps at which something is happening. Something being either a calculation that does not involve the end user entering any data, like what happened at stage 5, which we skipped over, or it might be a optional stage which would only be invoked, only be routed to as the end user based upon some of the values that have been accrued thus far, such as add flood, add electronics, etc. Now, if I were to go back now, I can go to the end here, and now when I circle back, I can see how I can now add, say, a couple of these different optional coverages. Again, I'll have that same step 3, but now it's going to ask me for a level of coverage for jewelry insurance, which is then going to be used for the pricing of the jewelry insurance value. But also, the other thing that has happened without any involvement by me will be to create, based upon that flood insurance, we're going to execute that calculation for what the premium will be based upon the routing, depending on what level of coverage and what state this given property is in. It will auto-calculate what I want that flood coverage to be, in this case being $449 per year. As we see, it's been automatically created, and the jewelry coverage amount has been retained as a value, which likewise was a variable considered in the calculation of the premium for that jewelry coverage.